Hey guys, Ryan over at 2 Minute Tennis. I'm going to show you the 5 swing checkpoints on the one-handed backhand. Swing checkpoints are places you can scroll through somebody's stroke, and then when you get to a certain time and place in their swing, there should be certain things happening. And I'm going to show you that here. There are 5 swing checkpoints on the one-handed backhand. Let me show you them on the right here with me. Swing checkpoint number 1 is the ready position. Swing checkpoint number 2 is the unit turn. Swing checkpoint number 3 is the racket drop. Swing checkpoint number 4 is the contact. And swing checkpoint number 5 is the finish. So I want to take you through here and just show you my backhand, because whenever I demonstrate technique, there's always a percentage of the comments in the video themselves and people reaching out to me in direct message saying, hey, you're swinging a way that I don't see the pros swinging. I really have 2 answers for that. One, every swing I use, pros swing in certain situations. And 2, pros are pros for a reason. They can do things that you and I can't. And so I am about 1/10 the athlete of Roger Federer and Tsitsipas and Djokovic. I mean, there's just no way you could even compare my athleticism to them. So I'm going to have to use a swing that works for me. And you as an amateur are going to have to work within the limits of your athleticism and your timing and your explosiveness and your coordination. And you're going to have to give yourself the best chance possible. And the way to do that is actually to use technique that abides by the laws of physics, the dimensions of the court, and the biomechanics of the body. So the ready position is checkpoint number 1. As you turn, and I'm going to show you here, Tsitsipas, as you turn for your one-handed backhand, that's checkpoint number 2 right here. When you turn for checkpoint number 2, what you want is to have the racket very vertical, right? So many players, when they turn for their one-handed backhand, their hand, incorrectly rises. And when the hand rises, that's when the racket's going to lay back. The strings are going to be wide open. What you want is the racket to be very vertical. Now, again, I said I'm a one-hander, or I'm a two-hander. I'm not a one-hander. I've mentioned this in many posts before on Instagram. Your goal is to get the racket as close to vertical as possible. Let me see whoops, I did not mean to do that. Let me see what the angle is at the moment. So my racket, that's about straight up and down. And then, so it's pretty close. So anywhere I would say if you can get less than 20 degrees, that would be pretty good, that you can get the racket very vertical. That would be a good thing. The more vertical, the better. So I would actually like it if I was along this line. That would be great. The more vertical, the easier it's going to be for you to then drop the racket and close the racket. And I'll show you that in a second. But this is checkpoint number 2. Your strings should be facing off to the left. You can see his strings are facing off to the left. Mine are facing off to the left because we're both right-handed. So this is checkpoint number 2. So if you go out and film yourself, you're a one-hander, and you, from the ready position, look at your turn. The tip of the racket should be pointing up, and you're going to try to take the racket back so that the racket is basically on edge to the opponent. So right about there, my strings are still visible a little bit to the opponent. I actually wish my grip was a little farther on this video to get to a true Eastern backhand grip. But my strings are facing off to the left with the tip of the racket pointing up. Another thing to note is my elbow. So many players incorrectly have their elbow down, which then even more lets the racket be wide open, and then their strings point up. So because I have my left elbow up, which you'll see my elbow is actually up in the ready position. See the space here? See this space? And my elbow's away from my body. When the elbow is away from your body, then when you turn, the elbow can be up. And my racket is very level. My left arm is very level. And that's what you want. You want the left arm like that. You definitely don't want your left arm like this, where the elbow drops. Most players drop this elbow like this. That's definitely not what you want. And the reason is when the racket drops, and you'll see we both drop the racket here. When the racket drops, the goal is to close the racket face. You want to be able to close the racket face at this point prior to contact so that you can swing in what's called, inside out away from your body and then be able to impart topspin with a vertical racket face at contact. Now, Tsitsipas is not closing his racket face a ton right here. This is a return of serve, and it's a pretty high ball. So he's not going to drop a tremendous amount below contact on this ball. But prior to contact for you, what I want is to make sure that once your racket goes all the way back around 180 degrees, and as it drops, that the racket closes, that your strings point down. Again, the reason you want the strings to point down at this point, this is called checkpoint 3, is so that when you swing up to contact, your strings face forward. Most players who struggle with their one-handed backhand have a very vertical racket at this point, and their racket's like this. And their racket could kind of, they could balance a coin on the edge of the racket. The problem with this is that it points the strings directly off to the side when you're below contact. And then when you swing up to contact, the strings face up and the ball goes straight up into the air, which you don't want. So what's best is actually to have the strings slightly closed. That'd be too much. But slightly closed, and when the strings are slightly closed, when you swing up to contact, then they face forward. Another thing I want to show you is where Tsitsipas and I are letting go with our left hand, our non-hitting hand. Many recreational players incorrectly let go way too early. Notice we're both letting go in front of our left hip, in front of kind of like our left pocket. That allows us to then swing this hand back and become a counterweight, which keeps our chest to the side throughout the stroke. It's really important that you stay sideways because one, it actually allows the arm to push off of the body. It makes the body very stable, and it allows the racket to swing out toward your target. Many players, as they hit the backhand, they rotate a ton with their body, and they end up with their belly button facing forward over the net, which just pulls the racket off to the side. It then gives their shot side spin, and the ball just carries like a frisbee. So oftentimes players cannot stay sideways, and they need to, but many players cannot stand sideways or stay sideways during the stroke because they let go too soon, and then their left hand just pulls forward. But if you hold on long enough with your left hand until basically just before contact, then your left hand can start to go back as a counterweight to counter the movement of the right arm, if you're right-handed, as you swing through. And you'll see as I swing up, look at my left hand. So here my left hand, oops, let me get the right tool. There we go. My left hand's here, and now my left hand's here. Let's look at Tsitsipas. His left hand's here. Well, now it's there. Never mind. Give me a second. So it's here. Let's see if it goes back a little bit. Oh, not a tremendous amount. But it did stay, right? It definitely did not come forward. And so from the contact point, we want to stay sideways. So our chest is to the side. Both of us have our chest to the side. And I want you to look at the finish. Now, this is the finish that I demonstrate. And it always gets people kind of like bothered by it. They're like, that's not what the pros do. And for those of you who say that, you're right partly. You don't see Dimitrov do this all the time. You don't see Tsitsipas do this all the time, but they do use this finish. Federer uses this finish. Wawrinka uses this finish. They use this finish in very tough situations. Return of serve, when they're trying to hit a passing shot down the line, when the opponent's at the net and hits a quick volley to them and they're kind of on the baseline, they kind of hit a quick short hop or they have very little time to react and to hit. They will finish in what's called the left side of the letter V. The left side of the letter V is so important because it keeps the wrist angle the same. So here's my arm, here's my racket, here's his arm, here's his racket. Oops, let me fix that. So that angle is the angle we both had at contact. So here's contact, and all he's doing is lifting up, and that's his finish. All I'm doing is going from the contact to that finish. And what that does is it means that you don't have to calculate much. There's no real right or wrong swing. There's just a swing with the fewest adjustments. There's a swing that requires you to be very athletic, kind of like the Shapovalov jump backhand and the Kyrgios slap forehand. And then there are swings that actually allow you to be you, that you don't have to be perfect. And this type of finish, if you're struggling with your one-handed backhand, if you're a coach and your students are struggling with the accuracy and consistency of the one-handed backhand, this type of finish is so great because it keeps the wrist fixed. And yes, you can rip topspin. Yes, you can hit it super hard. Yes, you can hit the ball cross court. You can hit all the shots you typically have. because the angle is the angle you have at contact. It's just most players, they swing across and they roll the wrist over and finish with the strings pointing down. And that might work for Federer. It might work for Gasquet and Dimitrov and Shapovalov and Tsitsipas a lot of the times. But if you're listening to this video, I'm sorry to say, but you're not as athletic as those players I just mentioned. So we need to give ourselves the best chance possible. And if you're looking to improve your one-handed backhand, this type of finish is absolutely what you're looking for. So let's go over this again. You've got your ready position. When you take your racket back, take it back with the tip of the racket pointing up and try to have the racket very vertical. Have the racket like this. Oops, let me fix that one. Definitely do not have your racket flat, which is what most people do. Get your strings facing off to the left. Don't allow your strings to point up when you take the racket back. Your swing will fall apart at that point. Drop the racket down below contact and close the racket face. Because this is a return of serve, he is going to put some topspin on this ball, but he's definitely not going to rip it with topspin. He's just trying to be able to kind of fight this ball off at the moment. As you swing, keep your body sideways. You're going to do what's called air the armpit. So it's like you're lifting the hood of a car. So there's going to be space under your armpit as you swing low to high. And if you're right-handed, finish in the left side, the letter V, just like Tsitsipas, just like I'm demonstrating. It's going to give you the best chance for consistency. And when you're more consistent, you have more fun. It builds your confidence. It makes you want to play more tennis. And then obviously you're going to get more enjoyment out of this great game, which is why you're playing tennis in the first place. Any questions, feel free to DM me or throw them in the comments below, and I'll answer them as quickly as possible. Have a great day.